Hi, this is Judy from Bungalow Quilting and Yarn once again. And once again working with some of my favorite fabrics from Shannon Fabrics. This is the Embrace. This is Shannon Fabrics Embrace. It's double gauze, and their brand name for the double gauze is Embrace, and that's what I'm going to be referring to it by in the rest of this video. So Embrace comes a little bit wider than normal fabrics. It's not as wide as the Cuddle, so it's not 60 inches wide, but it's not as narrow either as normal regular cotton quilting fabric. It is about 52 to 54 inches wide. So you can see it's got these nice little grid lines on the double gauze, which makes it very easy to cut. So I never use a rotary cutter on my Shannon Fabrics Embrace because I really want to give a customer just the exact amount that they need. And so I always cut right on that grid. So you can see that it is a little bit wider. And what I'm going to do is make a skirt. I'm going to make a skirt for a little girl today. And I'm just using a full width of the Embrace. So that's going to be my width of my skirt. And obviously nobody is going to be that big when they're that little. And so we're going to gather the top. So the first thing I'm going to do is, I'm the fabric store, obviously, and you can order this Embrace and many other Shannon Embrace fabrics off my website at www.bungalowquilting.com and have it shipped right to your door. I always ship same day. When the order comes in, it gets shipped. We're very close to the post office, and so your stuff gets shipped to you very quickly. So these are an inch apart, these little grid squares. So if I was going to make this for maybe a 3-year-old girl, I know that I'm not going to need something that's going to be much, much longer at all than 1/4 yard. Maybe not even 9 inches, but let's just, for the sake of argument, go with 1/4 yard. So that's 9 inches. So you go to Bungalow Quilting and Yarn and you order 1/4 yard of Embrace, or you come into the shop and you order 1/4 yard of Embrace. And then it will be cut exactly on that grid line. So now you have a piece of fabric that's 1/4 yard by about 52 to 54 inches wide. Okay, so now you can see that I've got this 1/4 yard piece, and I've just taken the selvage ends, brought them together, right sides together, and sewed down the short edge of the piece of fabric. I've put it together, right sides together, and sewn along the short edge. The selvage makes the edge finish right there, so you don't even have to zigzag it or serge it. And I've already started putting in my 1/4 inch hem. So I'm going to show you what you do with that. So you just hem the one edge of it, the long edge. You turn it under 1/4 inch and turn it under a 1/4 again. So here's 1/4 and then 1/4 again. And then what I like to tell my youngest students is, and see I fell off the cliff here, so I'm gonna have to go back and rip that. But you always want to stay right on the edge of your fabric without falling off the cliff. And what I mean by that is that you're gonna sew it here along this edge without falling off the cliff. You're not gonna fall off the cliff right there. So I'm going to take it over to the sewing machine and show you how to do that. Seamstress, I know this sounds ridiculous, but when you put your skirt or something circular around on your sewing machine, make sure your underside is clear. That seems like I'm stating the obvious, but you wouldn't be surprised at how many times people will sew, because this piece is up underneath here, they will sew that together and you'll get your other side pinched in with your one side. So what I'm going to do is just turn this under 1/4 and 1/4 inch again, and then I'm going to sew. I'm sewing close to the edge without falling off the cliff. Close to the edge without falling off the cliff. I'm going to do that all the way around till I get back to the beginning. And there's no need to backstitch. Just stop where you started and maybe overlap that stitching just a little bit. Okay. So here I am working on my hem. I'm going to turn under 1/4 and then 1/4 again. The Embrace just folds so nicely and neatly. I don't know why this is not in focus. So that you don't have any trouble with it at all. So here I am coming right back to the beginning where I started the hem. back stitch. I'll just go over it by a couple of stitches. Okay, so now remember I said that the top of this skirt is going to need to be gathered because it's a good 50 inches, 52 inches wide, the fabric is. And so I need this, I am going to put an elastic waistband on here, but I am not going to stretch that elastic across that whole width. So I am going to put a gathering stitch on this. So I have about 1/4 inch seam allowance I'm going to put in my first row of gathering stitches. When you put gathering stitches in something, the best way to do it is always to use 2 rows of gathering stitches. The other important thing is to only go halfway around, stop, and then start up again. Because if this thread breaks when you're gathering this, if the thread breaks, you're going to end up having to replace the whole entire piece of thread around the whole skirt, around the top of it. So I'm going to turn my stitch length up. I'm going to go up because if I'm gathering, I want to be able to pull this thread and have it pull. So I'm going to go up to between 4 and 5 on my Bernina. I don't know what it would be on somebody else's machine. See how nice and big that is? And you can see it's already kind of starting to gather up a little bit behind the foot. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to go around to the halfway point of this skirt. There. But we can always pull the gathering stitches out later. You can always rip those out. Okay, so right there you can see by the crease, because that's where it came off the bolt, that is my halfway point. So I'm going to stop. I'm going to cut the thread. And I'm going to start up again. And like I said, that's because if I happen to have my thread break while I'm pulling it and gathering it, well, then it's only part of that thread is breaking, not the whole piece. If you have a really wide piece of fabric that you're gathering, you may have to do that in multiple segments. You might have to stop and gather it, or run your seam in shorter segments so that you're not, like if you're making draperies or something like that, so that you're not risking having that thread break and then the whole thing has to start over. Okay, so there's my first row of gathering stitches. This is my second row of gathering stitches. And a lot of people don't know that you have to do this, but you do. You have to make 2 rows. It has to be 2 rows wide so that it lays flatter and it lays so much more neatly when you are doing the actual gathering of it. So I'm going to show you. See that? I actually have 2 rows of gathering stitches right there. And I'm going to do that all the way around the skirt, top of the skirt again. Now double gauze will ravel when you're sewing with it. So if it would make you happier and more comfortable, you could always serge that top edge before you start gathering it. But when you're gathering it, you're pulling. Okay, so here we are coming up to the halfway point again. So we're going to stop. Flip the threads. And start again. It's important not to cross over. Don't cross over and run over your first row of gathering stitches, because then it sews it down and you're not going to be able to pull the stitches up. See that? We have 2 rows of gathering stitches, and they're pretty wide, so it'll pull pretty easily when you pull them. Now, gathering is not something that people aren't born with this knowledge. A lot of people, when they first start sewing, don't know what gathering is. You use it when you're trying to create a ruffle, or you're trying to make something that was longer, you're trying to make it shorter. That's basically the premise of why you gather something. So here are my gathering stitches. Here are my ends of my thread. Always leave a little bit of extra thread because you're going to pull on these now. Okay, so now I'm doing my gathering. So what I'm doing is I'm pulling on these threads. As I'm pulling on these threads, I'm moving my fabric along the threads. Now, you need to know how long you want to make this, because when you're gathering this, you're going to say, well, I want to gather it to the point of what? How long do I want this to be when I'm gathering it? See, you just keep pulling them along, pull on these threads and pull this along. So you may say, I want this whole entire thing to measure 25, 26, 27, I don't know, whatever, inches, number of inches. And a toddler has about a 22-inch waist. And so I'm going to pull this to have it be about probably 26 inches, so that this whole piece, the whole measurement all the way around measures 26 inches, because I'm going to add elastic to the top of that. So once this whole thing, not half of it measures, so the half of it's going to measure about 13 inches, maybe 13 and a half. All the way around, my circumference of this is going to be 26 inches. Okay, so now I've got this so that it's about 13 inches from here to here, a little bit less. And you can see now it's obvious as to why I wanted you to put 2 rows of gathering stitches in there, because look how nice and flat this lays. And then you can adjust it, because you don't want all the gathers to be here and just have a flat space and then all the gathers in one place. So you're going to arrange your gathers so that they're even. Make your gathers even, so that that's evenly gathered up around the whole skirt. Okay, then I'm going to flip the skirt to be right sides out, because I'm going to put my elastic on the top of this. This is the part that people find to be the trickiest part, is actually putting the elastic on. So what I'm going to do is I've got some sparkle elastic. I've got some sparkle elastic that I'm going to put on the top of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay this on here and I'm going to stitch along here, but I'm going to stretch it while I'm stitching. But what I'm going to do first is I'm going to sew the elastic together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to overlap it. So I'm thinking if a toddler's waist is about 22 inches, I've cut this to be about 22 inches because you want it to be snug. If you make it exactly, if you make it exactly 22 inches after you've overlapped it, it's going to fall down. So you got to have it so that it's tight. It's like when you have your underwear elastic, you're stretching it to get it on your body and it stays snug to keep it up all day. So I cut this about 22 inches and I'm overlapping it. Okay, and I'm going to go over to the sewing machine and I'm going to sew it together. I don't have to worry about that edge unraveling, but I could zigzag the edge of it to make it nice and neat if I needed to. Okay, so I've just overlapped it and I'm going to sew it and then I'm going to back stitch. Across it. Okay, and then that should be good. The thread matches so well, it sinks right into the elastic, so it just looks really, really nice. You can't even hardly see it. Okay, so now I've divided, my elastic is sewn together, and I've divided my elastic into quarters. See, here's 1/4, here's the other quarter, another quarter, and another quarter. And I'm going to do the same thing to my skirt. I'm dividing it into quarters because I'm going to match where those pins are, and that's where these pins are going to go. All right, so I'm going to match them up so that I have an even, the elastic is distributed evenly along the top of this skirt. Okay, so I'm going to pin this in quarters. We've got it pinned at the quarter marks. So the bottom of the elastic is overlapping the skirt. I'm going to cover up the gathering stitches. So when I sew this on, the gathering stitches are not going to be evident at all. So I'm going to sew along that edge. And you see, I've got more skirt than I have elastic. And that's how it should be, because I'm going to pull this while I'm sewing to fit this. So this gets pulled along, and then this is underneath. So I've removed the tray or the table on my sewing machine. And I'm going to backstitch. It's important here to backstitch. Okay. And why have I removed the tray? Because I want this arm to be free so that my skirt can go around that arm. So I'm going to pull this. I'm going to pull this as I'm stitching. I'm going to keep pulling till it matches the skirt, till it matches the skirt length and the length of the top of the skirt is what I mean. So I want to keep this gathering stitch here hidden. So that's going to be underneath the elastic while I'm stitching. So I'm pulling and stitching at the exact same time. Pull, stitch. Okay, so now it's done. Now go back underneath and trim up all your threads. Trim all those threads out of there. And all the gathering threads, trim them all out of there. Look how cute that is. And I think it's important to note that you use needle stop down when you're stitching and pulling at the same time. Always have your needles set for needle stop down. This is certainly a cute little summer skirt that I think she's going to wear over and over again, and it's so simple. One seam, that's it, one seam down the back, hem it, gather it, and put some elastic on it. Don't even need to make a casing. Super cute, and the Embrace makes it perfect for those hot summer days. And if you want to wear it in a cooler time, put some leggings underneath. Super, super cute.